How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're sending Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechta Chullin. Friends, Pei Aleph feels like we're starting to get further along over here, which is pretty exciting because Chullin is a massive Masechta. 80 feels like we're starting to get into the lower end of the advanced numbers. Anyways, great daf today. Some interesting sugyas here. I have broken up the daf into 3 sections. Section number 1, additional lashes for oso v'es bino Kodashim in the azarah. Wow, what an interesting sugya, right? When you have a mother and a daughter, they are both korbanos, and they're both offered in the azarah. We are going to discuss some extra potential mitzvahs lo sases that may be in violation. We will continue discussing the shita of Reb Shimon on oso v'es bino when it comes to Kodashim. Yesterday we saw the opinion of Reb Yoshia, who says that according to Reb Shimon there is no oso v'es bino. When it comes to Kodashim, we are going to see the shita of Rav Hamnuna. Very interesting discussion there. And we will, towards the end, get to a new Mishnah with kind of also relates to the machlekes between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim, and that will bring up the sugya of warning for a less stringent penalty when a person has committed multiple averas, carrying differently weighted penalties. For example, capital punishment and lashes, and one was warned for lashes. Will he get lashes even though there was a potentially more severe violation, i.e. capital punishment? So friends, very exciting daf because there's some real sugyas here, which is fun. In some ways, it feels like there's some sugyas that we haven't really seen since Nezikin, Noshim and Nezikin. So nice to have a little bit of a throwback. Honestly, it's a little bit, this kind of stuff about Hazra and Misa and Malchus. It's interesting. It's a little bit feels like a little less tricky than all the Kodashim stuff. Kodashim stuff is tricky stuff. Friends, come join me. Let's have a great time learning Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechta Chullin. Friends, we begin on Daf Pei Amid Beis, 2, 4, 5 lines, I believe, before it gets wide. Vilelke, you see that? Vilelke nami mishum lavde mechusar zman. Very, very interesting question. So this is talking about the scenario where osa v'es bino, right? So let's say you have a mother and a daughter. We'll use as an example. Both of them are korbanos. A mother and a daughter, both of them are korbanos. Now, so we'll assume in our examples, just so that we can keep things consistent, we'll assume that the mother is slaughtered first, the daughter is slaughtered second. So the mother was slaughtered in the azarah, as a korban in the azarah, perfect, right? All good. So, everything's kosher there. And then the daughter is slaughtered as a korban in the azarah. That's where things get tricky, because according to the Chachamim, so the first shchita was entirely kosher, which means that since the mother was shechted, so you're not allowed to shecht the daughter that day, also v'es bino. So the daughter, when she's shechted in the azarah, it's a pasul shchita, and there's a chiyav makis for also v'es bino. Okay, that when you slaughter the daughter in the azarah, there's chiyav makis for also v'es bino. For the Gemara, there should be another chiyav. There should be another lo saseh. The lo saseh of lo ye rotzev mechusar zman, because of course since it's also v'es bino, so you're not right. Lo tishchatu b'yom echad. You can't. Right, the second, right, the daughter is unable to be slaughtered the same day as the mother. You have to wait till tomorrow. So it's premature today to offer the daughter. So it's mechusar zman. It's too early. It's premature, and therefore, in general, as we're going to learn about, the general psulim of korbanos fall into the category of a lo saseh of lo ye rotze, as we're going to see. So the question is, in addition to Also ve'ezbino lo sishchatu biyom echad. In addition to being in violation of that lav when slaughtering the daughter in the azarah as a korban, you should also be in violation of mechusar zman, which would be the lav of lo yeratze. And that's the Gemara's question. What about that lav? Mishum lav de mechusar zman. There should also be a chiyuv makis for violating the mitzvahs lo saseh, the prohibition of mechusar zman, that since the mother was shechted, you have to wait to offer the daughter until tomorrow. Today is premature. Decided that we learn in the Brayso minayin l'chol ha'psulin shebeshor v'shebeseh shu b'lo yiratze. How do we know that all kind of miscellaneous psuls of korbanis by oxen and by goats and sheep, that they fall under this lav of lo yiratze? The pasuk says v'shor v'seh, that if you have the pasuk says that if you have an ox, if you have a sheep or a goat, sarua v'kalut, if you have, for example, a mum that one limb is too big or that the hooves are not fully split, so the pasuk there says nidava taisa also uleneder lo yeratze. You can't bring it as a neder. Limit al psulin shebeshor v'shebeseh, that it teaches about the psuls of an ox and of a sheep and a goat, shehu below yeratze, that general psuls by a korban fall under the category of lo yeratze, and therefore mechusar zman, the fact that it's premature to slaughter the daughter, and you did anyways, you should also be in violation of the lav of lo yiratze and get double lashed for oso ve'ezbino and lashed for lo yiratze. Chaver, what do you think? A lot of lashes. And for the Gemara, ki kachashiv lavi de oso ve'ezbinoi lavi nuchrae lo kachashiv. And for the Gemara that, well, when the Mishnah was going through the lists of, well, you're going to be chayiv this, and you're going to be chayiv that, you're going to be chayiv that, and maybe this. We're only to this parak, of course, is parak oso ve'ezbino. So we're concerned about oso ve'ezbino. We're not listing lo yeratze. V'lo, what? We're only really concerned about oso ve'ezbino. We're not concerned with anything else. Kodashim b'chutz. What about when it came to kodashim b'chutz? What do we say by kodashim b'chutz? If you have korbanis, and you offer them a mother and a daughter korbanis, and instead of offering them in the azarah, you offer them outside of the azarah. So what do we say? The first one, you be chayiv kares for. What do you mean chayiv kares for slaughtering the first one? For shchutei chutz. And then it says you also chayiv makis for the first one. What do you chayiv makis for the first one? Not for oso ve'ezbino. You see, you're allowed, right? When you slaughter just the mother, you haven't slaughtered the child yet. So you chayiv makis for the first animal, also for shchutei chutz. So why are you trying to get me to believe that we're only considering oso ve'ezbino when clearly we are also considering other things? For example, shchutei chutz. Kodashim b'chutz, second line of the wide lines, the lave nuchrainenu, that kodashim b'chutz, shchutei chutz, is an external lav. It's a lav other than oso ve'ezbino. The kachashiv. And the Mishnah is talking about shchutei chutz, even though it's not oso ve'ezbino. The katoni, as we learned in our Mishnah, kodashim b'chutz, when you have a mother and a daughter that are both korbanis, and they are slaughtered outside of the azarah, harishon chayiv kares. The first one is chayiv kares because of oso ve'ezbino. Vishneim sof g'nisar boy, both for the first animal and the second animal. There will be a chiyuv makis, the first one for shchutei chutz, and the second one for oso ve'ezbino. Bishlamo sheni mishulav oso ve'ezbino. I understand what the second guy is getting makis for oso ve'ezbino. When you slaughter the mother and then you slaughter the daughter, when you slaughter the daughter, you'll be in violation of oso ve'ezbino. Elarishin amai soifeg. Why is the first fellow getting makis? Lav mishum lav de shchutei chutz. It's because of shchutei chutz. It's because when slaughtering the first animal, shchutei chutz, and getting makis for the lav of shchutei chutz. So clearly, we are also discussing and talking about makis for other lo sases other than osav es beno lo sishchatu biyom echad. So again, back to our question: shouldn't there also be makis for lo yerotze and for the Gemara ena chinami? That's what the Gemara says. Ena chinami. Doesn't say it. I say that. Ena chinami. Ena chinami. Just like for the second animal, you're chayiv for osav es beno, you're also chayiv for lo yerotze. However, the reason why the Mishnah didn't mention it is because kol eichad deleka lav de osav es beno choshiv lavin uchroi. I'll tell you why. Cheve, who can tell me what the name of our parak is? The name of our parak is osav es beno. That is our main concern. That is what we are most interested in discussing, osav es beno. Now, when you shech that first korban outside of the azarah, there is no violation of osav es beno yet. So, we can't be talking about osav es beno. What violation is there? Shchutei chutz. Okay, so let's talk about shchutei chutz. You chayiv for shchutei chutz, you get makis. When you then check the second animal, that is a violation of osav es beno. Once you already slaughtered the mother, now you're slaughtering the daughter, that's osav es beno. So since this now triggers osav es beno, that's what we're interested in talking about. Ena chinami, you're also in violation of lo yerotze, but because this is perik osav es beno, and it's our opportunity in Shas, we've learned almost all of Shas. We haven't really studied osav es beno. This is our opportunity to spend some time studying osav es beno. Let's focus on osav es beno. Let's not get distracted with lo yerotze. So v'chol eicha de ika lav de osav es beno, whenever there is osav es beno, i.e. when in our case when you shech the second korban outside of the azarah, lo chashav lavin uchroi, we're not going to be talking about other lavin that you may be in violation of as well. Reb Zera Omar, Reb Zera disagrees. Reb Zera's opinion is that you are not in violation of lo yerotze. According to the first opinion, you are in violation of lo yerotze, but we aren't focusing on that because we're not focusing on that because we're focusing on osav es beno, even though you are chayiv makis for lo yerotze according to the first answer. Reb Zera's answer is that you are not chayiv makis for lo yerotze. How come? Hanach l'mechusar zman de'akos of nisko le'esei. It's a lav anitak le'esei. My time, why is it a lav anitak le'esei? The Amar Krua, because the pasuk says Miyom hashmini va'ala yerotze, that from day 8 it could be a korban. Right? What does the pasuk say? The pasuk right before it says osav es beno, it says shor kesev oez. I'm reading the pasuk ki yivolid v'haya shiva as yomim tachasimo. You leave it with its mother for 7 days. Miyom hashmini va'ala yerotze the korban yishal Hashem, and then from day 8 you can already offer it as a korban. So Reb Zera says, right? So it says the Gemara. Let's go weiter. So miyom ashmini in meikara lo. It's an interesting line over there. So Reb Zera says that you are not chayiv makis for lo yerotze in this case of mechusar zman. Why not? Because it's a lav nitak le'esei. What does it mean? It's a lav nitak le'esei. It's machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says it's a classic. Rashi wants to say it's a classic example of lav nitak le'esei. What's a classic example of the lav nitak le'esei? No, sir. By korban pesach lo sasir memenu ad boker. Don't leave over korban pesach until the morning. Don't do it. It's a lav. What would I think? What if you do it? Chayv makis, right? V'anos memenu ad boker. And whatever is left over, here's what you do. Don't worry. We won't hit you. Burn it. That's what you do. To remedy the situation, burn it. And you're good. You won't get makis. So that's a classic example of a lav nitak le'esei. That you have a lav. Don't do this. If you did do this, here's what you do. Don't panic. Here's what you do. So Rashi wants to explain that what Reb Zera is saying is that mechusar zman is a lav anitak le'esei, because essentially what's going on here is don't offer the korban prematurely. Rather, instead, wait until the 8th day. from day 8, you can offer the korban. So therefore, according to Rashi, what Reb is saying is that because there's essentially a suggestion of what you should do, that means that there is no makis for mechusar zman, right? So if you shech this korban early, right, on day 7, or in our case, you don't wait, right? You need to wait till tomorrow to shech the daughter. But if you don't do it, if it's too early, so there won't be any chiyuv makis, since the Torah says wait until the next day. That's what you should do. Tosfos disagrees with this pshat in Rashi. As you may have been able to hear me kind of explaining it, it's not the easiest explanation, and Tosfos points out why it's not the easiest explanation, because when it comes to, for example, noser by a korban pesach, you did something wrong, you left it. The Torah says don't leave it to the morning, you left it over to the morning. And now here's what you do to fix it, you burn it. So the Torah says, don't do this, you messed up, you made a mistake, but don't worry, you can fix your mistake of noser by burning it. You did something wrong, but here's how you fix it. That's not the case by mechusar zman. It's not saying you did something wrong, here's how you fix it. It's saying wait until the 8th day to offer it. If you offered it beforehand, there's no way to fix it. So Tosfos says what it means is lavanitak le'aseh. It means that we are disassociated, we're disconnecting, we are severing from the lav, right? We have, right, in Sefer Vayikra, Perek Chav Beis, Pasuk Chav Gimel, it talks about the lav of lo yeratze, and we said that that's basically a mitzvah lo saseh by korbanos, which includes even like mumin, for example. We're saying, and we want to say they could include also mechusar zman, and that you would be in violation of lo yeratze. But then comes miyom hashmini v'hala yeratze, that right, we had the lav of lo yeratze, but then it says miyom hashmini v'hala yeratze. What it's doing is it's being a lav anitak. Let's say it's severing, it's disconnecting, disassociating from the initial lav of lo yeratze to then say no, it's not that. It is only miyom hashmini v'hala yeratze. It's a mitzvah's essay. It's a lav anitak le'essay, that we disconnected from the lav of lo yeratze, and we're saying it's this essay of miyom hashmini v'hala yeratze. And the fact that before Yom Hashmini, the fact that on day 7 and earlier you don't offer it as a korban, that is a lav abba, as the Gemara says, the lav abba michlal essay, that we treat a implied lav of offer the korban on day 8, implying don't offer before then. An implied lav is effectively, in terms of punishments, is treated as a mitzvah's essay. There's no lashes. And therefore, if we read the Gemara that way, so Reb Zera, Amar says Reb Zera, Hanach l'mechusar zman, there's not going to be any makis for the fact that this also vezbeno, that when you have these two korbanos that are shechted outside of the azarah, and you shech the second one, we say chayv makis for also vezbeno. Says Reb Zera, you're not chayv makis for the fact that it's mechusar zman. The fact that the second korban, you need to wait till tomorrow. It's premature right now. You need to wait till tomorrow in order to shecht it. And that mechusar zman, the akos of niskol le'eseh is a lav anituk le'eseh. My time in the Amar Kra miyom hashmini v'hala yerotze. When the pasuk says that offer these animals as korbanos from day 8, the Torah is disconnecting it from the lav of lo yerotze, and it's saying miyom hashmini yerotze, and making it a mitzvah's essay. Miyom hashmini in from day 8, it will appease me'ikar lo, but not initially. Lav abba michlal essay, and a lo saseh that is implied from a mitzvah's essay, we treat it as a mitzvah's essay, and that is why there is no makis for the fact that it's mechusar zman and the lav of lo yeratze, and that is why the Mishnah says that there is only the lav of also ve'es bino. But 1 second, this all sounds very elegant. However, there's one kink, which is that these psukim are needed for Rav Afturiki. Rav Afturiki asked, On the one hand, Ksiv, our pasuk says, Shivas yomim tachas imoy. On the one hand, the pasuk says that the baby animal will be for 7 days with its mama. Halayla chazi, implying that the night between day 7 and day 8, the night following day 7, it's already over, right? For 7 days it should be with its mother. The following night already, you can offer it as a korban, right? Uchsiv, the pasuk says, miyom hashmini v'halo yeratze. But then the pasuk says that only from the 8th day you can offer it, not the night before. Miyom hashmini v'halo in laila lo, but not the night before. Haketzai, what do we do about this? Laila lekadusha, you can be makdish the animal already the night between day 7 and day 8. You can be makdish it to be a korban. Yom la'atzah, and you'll offer it the next day on day 8. So we need this pasuk, which we were saying teaches lavanitak le'esei, but we need this pasuk for Rab Afturiki and for the Gemara Ksiv Klachvina Nish Gefelech. We have another pasuk that says Ken Taseh L'Shorchel L'Tzonecha, and what the Gemara doesn't have is the continuation of the pasuk Shivas Yomim Yiyeh Mimo Bayom Hashmini Titnoli. That is for 7 days with its mother, and then on the 8th day you can have it as a korban. So we could still. My understanding is that we're saying, meaning if Rab Afturiki learns it out from the pasuk that we were working with, so then I think the point is that we'll use this other pasuk to learn that it's a lavanitak le'esei, and that it's really a mitzvah's essay of offer the korban on day 8, and there's no chiv makis. So we have 2 psukim that say don't offer it on day 7, offer it on day 8. So one of them can teach that you can be makdish it the night before and offer it on day 8. The other one is teaching that it's a lavanitak le'esei, that there's no chiyav makis for mechusar zman. Okay, I just looked up that last detail over there, which, okay, yeah, I felt a little bit, something was not great over there. Well, no, everything is great, but we're shifting Rab Afturiki's limud of the night before to be on this other pasuk, which I actually prefer to say, because then we can keep the original pasuk for the lav nitak le'esei, which makes more sense because that's a few psukim after the lav of lo yeratze, and we could say that this other pasuk from Sefer Shmos about shivas yom im imo bayom hashmini titnoli, etc., that could be for Rabbi Afturiki. The reason why I thought differently the other way is because I thought Rabbi Afturiki was specifically using our verse, so we had to use the other verse. But no, apparently we're going to shift Rab Afturiki to the other verse, which means that we could use the original verse for lav nitak le'esei, which is a little better because the lav is then in the context of the pasuk of lav nitak le'esei. Okay, and now we get a new perspective on Reb Shimon's shita when it comes to also vezbino in the context of Kodashim. Yesterday we saw the shita of Reb Yoshia, who had said that Reb Shimon says that there is no concept of also vezbino by Kodashim, because by Kodashim there is no concept of shchita re'uya. Because by Kodashim, right, normally when it comes to shchita, right, you shecht a sheep for lunch. When the sheep is alive, you can't eat it because it's Eiver Min HaChai. You shech the sheep, now you can eat it. The shechita is what makes the difference. You shech the animal, now the meat is kosher. When it comes to korbanos, it's not that simple. When you shech the korban, you can't now eat the meat. You have to do kabbalas adam, halachas adam, zrikas adam. Only then can you eat the meat. So therefore, Reb Shimon argues that inherently, when it comes to korbanos, there is no such concept of a shechita re'uya by korbanos. Shechita by korbanos is inherently insufficient because you still have to do the avodas adam. So therefore, Reb Yoshi says that according to Reb Shimon, there is no concept of osav vezbino by korbanos, since the shechita is inherently shechita she'eina re'uya, and Reb Shimon's shechita is kol shechita by shechita she'eina re'uya lo shma shechita. If it's a shechita she'eina re'uya, it's not shechita. And by osav vezbino, it says osav vezbino lo sishchatu b'yom echad. You can't shech them. There has to be a shechita by osav vezbino. Here, there's no shechita. Therefore, there's no shechita. There's no osav vezbino by Kodashim, according to Reb Shimon, as explained by Reb Yoshia. Now, we are going to see, Reb Oshaya. Reb Oshaya, not Reb Yoshia, Reb Oshaya. Now, we are going to see the shita of Reb Hamnuna. At the beginning, it's a little, actually, honestly, there's a bunch of sections coming up that are a little bit twisted. But at the beginning, there's like a brisa that actually we're not up to that brisa yet. Here we go. Amar Rav Nuna says Rav Nuna, Omer Oya Reb Shimon, that Reb Shimon would say, Ein osov es beno noeg b'kodshim. There is no concept of osov es beno by kodshim, just as Abu Shaya had said. My time now come, came with Reb Shimon, shchita she'enu re'uya shchita, since Reb Shimon's shchita is that shchita she'enu re'uya, an unfit shchita, is not called shchita. The Rabbanan argue, they say even if a shchita is unfit, it's still considered technically shchita. Reb Shimon says, if a shchita is unfit, it's not shchita. So shchitas kodshim nami shchita she'enu re'uya hi. And shchitas kodshim fits that bill. Shchitas kodshim is insufficient because it's dependent on avodas adam, kabbalah, olacha, zrika, and therefore the shchita of korbanos is shchita she'enu re'uya, and therefore it's not shchita, and osov es beno is dependent on shchita. Here this isn't shchita, therefore there's no osov es beno by korbanos. Just like Rabbi Shaya had said, Masiv Rav. Rav asked a kasha from a brisa, and this brisa is not going to make sense. Also, we're going to have to explain the brisa. I'm going to try, even though I'm going to try, it's not going to make sense. Even my attempts are not really going to make sense. But then we'll make sense of it. Also, as beno, kodshim b'chutz. So when it comes to also as beno, when you have korbanos, you have a mother and a daughter, both are korbanos, and they're slaughtered outside of the azarah. Now, the assumption for now seems to be that Reb Shimon does hold. Even though we've been saying so, since yesterday and also today, Reb Shimon doesn't hold of Osov es beno by Kodshim. But here it seems to be that Reb Shimon is holding of Osov es beno by Kodshim. So now Reb Shimon almost says Reb Shimon, Sheni below Saisa, that the second one is going to be in violation of a lo ta'aseh. And that is the lo ta'aseh of shchutei chutz. Okay? So basically what happened is, you have these two, you have the mother and you have the daughter. They are both korbanos, and they're both slaughtered outside of the azarah. Okay, so the first one, of course, is going to be chiv kares for shchutei chutz, also chiv makis for shchutei chutz. Now you get to the second animal. So Reb Shimon seems to be saying that there is a concept of also b'es beno for now, which is a little confusing because we keep on saying that he doesn't hold it. But in order for this to make sense, I think we have to say that Reb Shimon does say that there's also b'es beno going on. Now, because there's also b'es beno, when it comes to the second animal, we're saying that there is going to be a lo ta'aseh by shchutei chutz. Why is there lo ta'aseh by shchutei chutz? Because since there's also v'es beno, right, you shechted the mother, so you can't shecht the daughter right now. And therefore it's mechusar zman. Right? Because there's also v'es beno, you can't sech the daughter, you have to wait until tomorrow. And says, Shai Reb Shimon Omer, says Reb Shimon, Kol aroi lavo la'achar zman, that any korban that will be fit to be offered eventually, i.e. this daughter will be fit to be offered tomorrow, hareu below ta'aseh, there is the lo ta'aseh of shchutei chutz, ve'ein bo kares, but there won't be any kares since it can't be offered inside the azarah right now. Right? When it comes to the chiyuv kares of shchutei chutz, it says el pesach oil moed lo avio. You have to bring it to the oil moed. Here you can't bring it to the oil moed because you have to wait till tomorrow, so there's no chiyuv kares. But Reb Shimon would nonetheless say that there is the lav of shchutei chutz because he says that since it will become fit to be offered tomorrow, so there will be the lav of shchutei chutz. Whereas the Chacham say, Kol she'ein bo kares eino below ta'aseh. That if there is no chiyuv kares for this daughter, so there also will not be the lo ta'aseh either of shchutei chutz. V'kashalon. V'kashilon, kodashim bachutz. That when it comes to kodashim bachutz, sheni below ta'aseh v'sulo, I don't understand why Reb Shimon is only saying that there's a lo ta'aseh of shchutei chutz when it comes to the second korban. Kama miktal katal, because at the end of the day, according to Reb Shimon, the first animal that was shechted, because it's shchutei chutz, is shchita she'ena re'uya. And according to Reb Shimon, shchita she'ena re'uya, lo shmei shchita, is not shchita. As far as Reb Shimon's concerned, the first animal was hit over that with a broom, was not shechted. And therefore, if the first animal was not shechted, then there's no osovez beno. And if there's no, right, because that's dependent on those sishchatu biyomechad, shchita. And since the first animal was not shechted, well, then there's no issue of osovez beno bichlal when it comes to the daughter. And if that's the case, then if there's no osovez beno, then there should be a chiyuv kares for shchutei chutz. There's no issue in terms of osovez beno with the second, right, with the daughter. There is no mechusar zman. You could bring it into the azarah right now and offer it, because the mother was not shechted, since it was shchita she'ena re'uya. It was shechted bachutz, and therefore, since when it comes to the daughter, it could have been brought into the azarah. So then, by offering it, by shechting it outside of the azarah, there should be a chiyuv kares. Right? Kama mikdal kato, since the first shchita of the mother outside of the azarah was shchita she'ena re'uya, it's not shchita, and therefore there's no osovez beno, and therefore mikdal kato sheni mikabel b'fnim. Therefore you would be able to have taken the second, right, the daughter into the azarah and offer it in the azarah. So kares nami l'chayiv, you should be chayiv kares for the daughter. Why is Reb Shimon saying that there's only a violation of a lav of shchutei chutz? So we have to make sense of this brisa, right? Because like certain elements of the brisa, we're kind of relying upon osovez beno. At the same time, we're saying that there shouldn't be osovez beno because shchita she'ena re'uya lo shma shchita. So we have to figure out what's going on. So if Amar Rav, says Rav of Amila, Kedi, some say it's unattributed. You have to massage the brisa in the following way. Okay. When it comes to kodashim, shneim bachutz. So when both mother and daughter are korbanis, and they are both slaughtered outside of the azarah. Now, we are assuming that according to the rabbis, there is going to be also ve'es bino as a factor. And according to Reb Shimon, there isn't. Because since the mother, right, they're both being shechted outside, so it's not, it's shchita she'ena re'uya by the mother, there's no concept of shchutei chutz. There's no concept of osovez beno, according to Reb Shimon. Now, in terms of chayiv and pater and stuff, we are specifically talking about the chiyuv kares of shchutei chutz. So here we go. So kodashim shneim b'chutz, so both mother and daughter are korbanos, and they're both offered outside of the azarah. Li rabbanon, according to the rabbis, rishon anush kares. According to the rabbis, the first one, of course, is a chiyuv kares. Sheni pasul ufater, but the second, right, the daughter, according to the rabbis, it would be osovez beno. So if that's the case, the daughter would be unable to have been offered in the azarah. So therefore, there's no shchutei chutz, there's no vel pesach or moed lo avio, and therefore there's no chiyuv kares for the daughter. But the shchita will be possible because it's a korban outside of the azarah. Okay, so again, the rabbanon rishon anush kares, the first, right, the mother, your chayiv kares for the mother. Sheni, possible, but for the daughter, the shchita is psula, but ufater, there's no chiyuv kares for shchutei chutz. Shish, I hope I'm not confusing shchutei chutz and also ve'es beno. Oh, my brain's getting a little fried. What time is it? 6 p.m. Sheesh. I didn't really sleep last night. And this is the second daf from recording today because it's Tisha B'Av this week. What's today? Sunday? Tisha B'Av is on Thursday. Tisha B'Av you're not allowed to learn, but there's still Daf Yomi, even though you're not allowed to learn. Not only you're not allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to learn from the afternoon the day before Tisha B'Av. So I'm like trying to cram in extra dafs. Anyways, fine, okay. Now Reb Shimon doesn't hold of Osov as Bino, because the first, right, the shechita of the mother was shechita she'ena re'uya. So therefore, you're chayiv kares for the mother, but you're also chayiv kares for the daughter as well. Reb Shimon shneim anushim kares. There's chayiv kares for both of them because there's no Osov as Bino. So the second, right, the daughter, you can also bring into the azarah and offer it, and therefore there's a chayiv, when you offer both of them outside, there's a chayiv kares for both of them. Echad b'chutz ve'echad bifnim. Now, if the mother was offered b'chutz, outside of the azarah, and the daughter was offered in the azarah, so what would the Chacham say? Well, the mother was slaughtered outside of the azarah. So that is shchutei chutz, chiyuv kares. Okay? And the daughter was slaughtered in the azarah. Well, there's not going to be any chiyuv kares here, but it will be a pasul shchita. Right? The Rabbanan Rishon anush kares, sheni pasul ufater. Right? So the first one will be chayiv kares, the second one won't be chayiv kares, but the shchita will be psul. Now the Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon, he says that there's no concept of osov es b'no, since the shechita of the mother was shechita she'ena re'uya, and then you offer the daughter in the azarah, so the daughter is completely kosher. For the mother there'll be a chiyuv kares, for the daughter is completely kosher. The Reb Shimon sheni kosher. The second one, the daughter is completely kosher. Now, echad b'fnim ve'echad b'chutz. If the mother was offered in the azarah, the daughter was offered outside of the azarah. So according to the Chachamim, the mother is completely kosher. In terms of the daughter, there won't be any chiyuv kares, but right, because also as bino, you're not allowed to offer the daughter as a korban. Therefore, there's no chiyuv kares for shchutei chutz, but it would still be possible. Right, the Rabbanan Rishon kosher. Right, the mother who's offered in the azarah as a korban is completely kosher. Ufater, there's no issues. Sheni pasul ufater. Right, sheni, the daughter, there will be no chiyuv kares for shechting the daughter outside the azarah, but it will be pasul. Now, the Reb Shimon. What would you expect according to Reb Shimon? The mother is shechted inside of the azarah, and the daughter is shechted outside of the azarah. Well, according to Reb Shimon, he says shchita she'ena re'uya by korbanis. Right? So even though the mother was shechted as a korban inside the azarah, it's nonetheless shchita she'ena re'uya, and therefore vis-a-vis in terms of the daughter, there's no issue of osov es bino, and therefore I would think that Reb Shimon would say that shechting the daughter outside of the azarah would be a chiyuv kares, but he doesn't say that. The Reb Shimon sheni below taise. Reb Shimon says that the sheni, that the daughter shechting outside is just a mitzvah slow taise. The isa kadaitich ein also ves beno noeg bekadshim. But if what we're saying is that according to Reb Shimon, there's no concept of osov es bino by kodashim, and therefore because we said that the shechita of the mother in the azarah was shechita she'ena re'uya, therefore there's no osov es bino by the daughter. So, amai below taisa v'sulo kares nami l'chayiv, you should also be chayiv kares, right? As we said just a few minutes ago, right, that we would expect that if, according to Reb Shimon, there's no concept of also ve'ez bino by kodashim, and the mother was slaughtered in the azarah, but it's considered to be a shechita she'ena re'uya, and there's no implications for also ve'ez bino, then the daughter is slaughtered outside the azarah. I think that there should be a chiyuv kares, but Reb Shimon says that it's only a lo saseh. So what's going on over here? So ela omar rav. So rather, this is the point. This is the key. This is the point. This is what Rav Amnuna is saying. A malchus also ves bino noeg b'kodashim. that there's no chiyuv of makis for oso vezbino when it comes to korbanos. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It's a little bit different. Rav Hamnuna is a little bit different than Rav Oshaya. What did Rav Oshaya say? Rav Oshaya yesterday had said that according to Reb Shimon, there is no concept of oso vezbino by Kodashim at all. And that's because by Kodashim, as we've said, the shechita is not going to be, will not be matir the meat, since it's still dependent on Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zvika Sadam. So therefore the shechita is incomplete, it's insufficient. Shechita she'eina re'uya, it's not shechita, there's no oso vezbino by korbanis. That is the shechita of Rav Oshaya, period. Rav Hamnuna is more subtle. Rav Hamnuna says, look, shechita of a korban on its own, you're right, it's incomplete. But if they did the Kabbalah Sadam and the Allah Sadam and the Zrika Sadam, and now all of the avodos hadam are complete, and now you can eat the meat of the korban, well, now we'll consider it to be a shechita re'uya. Whereas Rav Oshaya said there's no possibility of considering shechita of a korban as a shechita re'uya. It's always going to be incomplete, according to Rav Oshaya. Rav Hamnuna would say not necessarily. If you shecht the korban and then do the Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, well, now the shechita of the korban is considered re'uya. Okay, this is interesting. And therefore, what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is, in our scenario, where the mother was slaughtered as a korban in the azarah, and it was shechted, and there was Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, so it's actually considered a shechita re'uya. Now, if the mother was a shechita re'uya, so now there's what to talk about in terms of oso vezbino. Now when it comes to the daughter, there is also vezbino. The mother was shechted, shechita re'uya, shechted as a korban in the azarah. There was Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, shechita re'uya. So now the daughter is going to be aser because of oso vezbino. Now if you take that daughter outside of the azarah and shecht it, so you won't be chayiv for oso vezbino. Why? Well, because of the fact that you'd be chayiv for oso vezbino is the reason why you're not chayiv for oso vezbino. What does that mean? Well, Reb Shimon says only a shechita re'uya is shechita. If you're shechting this animal, this daughter, and it's going to be in violation of oso vezbino, clearly it's a pasul shechita, which means it's a shechita she'eina re'uya, so you won't be in violation of oso vezbino. So therefore, as Rav Hamnuna says, ain makis. There's no makis. You're not going to get makis. So there is. So Rav Hamnuna disagrees with Rav Oshaya. Rav Oshaya says there's no concept b'chlal of oso vezbino when it comes to Kodashim. Rav Hamnuna disagrees. He says there is a concept of it. If the mother is shechted as a korban in the azarah, and there's Kabbalah Sadam, Olah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, the mother was properly shechted, shechita re'uya. Which means that there is a concept of you're not allowed to shech the daughter, it's also vezbino. However, there won't be a chiyuv makis, because by shechting the daughter, it's a shechita she'eina re'uya, and it's loshma shechita, and therefore there won't be a chiyuv makis. However, now turning to shchutei chutz, because this animal was also vezbino, and it was not ra'ui la'akrava, you have to wait till tomorrow. So Reb Shimon had said earlier, what did Reb Shimon say earlier? Let's see if we can find it. Reb Shimon, I'm reading from like 15, 20 lines earlier. Sheni below taisa shoyi Reb Shimon kol ra'ui lavu la'chazman, that whenever you have something that's fit to be offered later, such as this daughter, that's also vezbino, and you have to wait till tomorrow, harei below taise ve'ein bo kares. There's a lo taise, but there's no kares, and that's what Reb Shimon is talking about in the Braise. That when you have two korbanis, a mother and a daughter, and the mother is shechted in the azarah, and there was Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, and the daughter was shechted outside of the azarah, so there's no makis for oso vesbino, but there is the concept of oso vesbino, and because there's oso vesbino, if you, right, by shechting this daughter outside of the azarah, you're over on the lav of shchutei chutz, but there won't be any chiyuv kares for shchutei chutz. Okay, for some reason I thought that this wasn't going to be such a difficult daf. It's a very amazing daf. It's a very kachimi daf. What can I tell you? You can't get away from it. But wow, that was really something else. Now, you can kind of skip. Okay, Rashi basically says, I think, that you can basically skip the next 3 lines. Okay, so we're going to skip down to the first one on the line is Ve'az the Rava l'taimi. But the Rava l'taimi, and Rava is consistent with his reasoning. Da'amar Rava says Rava, he chulin, if the mother is chulin and is slaughtered outside of the azarah, uvna shlamim, and her son, but let's just keep consistent with our example until now, her daughter is a shlamim. Shachat chulin, if the mother was shechted, and I guess we're explaining Reb Shimon's shita, if the mother was shechted outside of the azarah, okay, so that's a proper shchita, which means that there would be, right? It's chulin outside of the azarah. It's a proper shchita. So then there would be also vesbino vis-a-vis the daughter. And now you shecht the daughter, which you're not allowed to shecht in the azarah. So potter, there won't be any chiyuv kares. Well, there won't be any chiyuv. There won't be any. Well, no, there won't be any. I assume it's potter for also as bino, since it's shchita she'ena re'uya. Right? There won't be any. Right? There won't be any chiyuv for also as bino because the shefting of the shlamim is shchita she'ena re'uya. Shlamim v'achar kach chulin. Now, if the daughter was first shechted in the azarah as a korban shlamim, and that was shchita, so the daughter was shechted as a korban shlamim, and there was kabbalah sadam, olacha sadam, zuika sadam, so it was a shchita re'uya, and then the mother was shechted outside of the azarah as chulin, well then, chayiv. Because since the mother was shechted as chulin outside of the azarah, so that's a kosher shchita, it's a shchita re'uya, and therefore there will be a chiyuv, right? If you have a mother and a daughter that are both chulin, and they're both slaughtered outside of the azarah, so it'll be also as bino, but the shchita will be ksher. So here also, so you slaughtered the daughter as a korban shlamim in the azarah, and you did kabbalah sadam, halacha sadam, zuika sadam, so it's a proper shchita. So now you're not allowed to shech the mother outside of the azarah. If you did shech the mother chulin outside of the azarah, you will be chayiv for also ves bino. Amar Rava says Rava, he chulin uvna ola, that if the mother is chulin and the daughter is ola, well, the daughter can't really be ola; it would have to be a son is ola. Lo mibaya shochat chulin v'achar shochat ola de potter. Certainly, if you first shechted the chulin, the mother as chulin outside of the azarah, and then you shechted the son as a korban ola in the azarah, you will be potter, since it is also as bino as a korban in the azarah. It will be shchita she'ena re'uya, and therefore it is not shchita, and you'll be potter. Ela afilu shochat ola ve'achar kach shochat chulin potter. But even if you first shechted the ola and did kabbalah sadam, halacha sadam, zuika sadam, and then shechted the mother as chulin outside of the azarah, you would still be potter. Shchita kamaisa lav shchita bas achila hi, because since a korban ola is not eaten, you don't eat it, it's entirely burnt to the mizbeach, so it's not shchita bas achila, and therefore it's not considered shchita either, and therefore there is no oso vesbino by the mother outside of the azar. For Rabbi Yaakov Omer Rabbi Yochanan, however, Rabbi Yaakov disagrees. He says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, achilas mizbeach shma achila, that even the consuming of the mizbeach is considered achila. So even though we don't eat the korban oil of the mizbeach does, that's enough for it to be considered a proper shchita, and it's a shchita bas achila, and there would be shchutei chutz by the mother. My time I'll come to Amukah, the pasuk says, "B'mei ochel yochel mibsar zevach shlamam b'shtei achilos." The pasuk is talking about 2 achilas, echad achilas adam Mizbeach, the eating of people, but also the eating of the Mizbeach. Therefore, shechting according to this Shita, shechting the Ola, and then doing Kabbalah Sadam, Malach Sadam, Zrika Sadam would be considered a proper Shechita since the Mizbeach is consuming it, and then there would be also as Beno when shechting the mother outside of the azarah. Sheesh, wow, okay, right, as Chullin. Wow, okay, this got a little bit more technical and tricky. I hope that you were able to hold on. I hope that was able to be explained in a way that was hold onable. Wow, as I was kind of saying it over, it's like, oh, this is actually quite technical and quite complex. But I hope you were able to hold on with me and that it was explained clearly enough. Now we get up to a new Mishnah, which kind of continues on this theme of the machlokes between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim with regard to Shchita she'ena re'uya. Reb Shimon says that any unfit Shchita is not considered a Shchita b'chlal. The Chachamim say that even if a Shchita is unfit, even if it's she'ena re'uya, it is nonetheless still considered a Shchita. So for example, says the Mishnah, Ashoichet v'nimtza treifa. So for example, if you shecht an animal, you do a proper Shchita, but the animal's treif, what can you do? So Shchita she'ena re'uya, you can't eat the animal, but it was a proper Shchita, it's just she'ena re'uya, you can't eat the animal. So Reb Shimon would say that Shchita she'ena re'uya, lo shma Shchita, it's not Shchita, and if this is also v'ez b'no, there would be no violation of also v'ez b'no. If the Chacham or whatever would say, even though it's a Shchita she'ena re'uya, it is still a Shchita, and it is still shaykh to the mitzvahs lo saseh of also v'ez b'no. So hashoichet v'nimtza treifa, a person shechs and the animal turns out to be a treifa. Hashoichet la'avodah zoche, person shechs for idolatry. V'hashoichet paras chatos, somebody who shechs the para aduma. The Gemara is going to go through pretty much each of these cases, so I'm not going to go into detail right now. We'll detail them in the Gemara. V'shor aniskol, somebody who shechs a shor, an ox that has been condemned to be stoned, it is also ba'hana'ah, and therefore it's shchita she'ena re'uya. Ve'egla arufa, as well as an egla arufa, which we will learn about in a few weeks' time in the Parshas HaShavua, when a corpse is found outside of a city and they don't know who done it. So they bring a calf and they whack the back of its head. It's also ba'hana'ah. We're going to discuss that in the Gemara. Reb Shimon So Reb Shimon says, look, even though these were beautiful shchitas, at the end of the day, shchita she'ena re'uya, lo shma shchita, not shaykh to osu v'ez b'no. Chacham mechayim, they say chayv because even though it's shchita she'ena re'uya, it is shchita, and it would be considered shaykh to the mitzvahs lo saseh of osu v'ez b'no. Hashoichet b'nisnav lebiyadu. Now, if you shecht an animal and pashit, the shchita gets messed up, and a shahir or whatever it might be, and it becomes nevela, v'anocher v'ma'akar, or you pierce or tear, it's not a proper shchita b'chlal. Patim shemosov ezmino. So then clearly there's no shchita at all, and there's no violation of also v'ez b'no. Amar Shimon ben Lakish, says Rish Lakish with regard to shechting a korban for shechting an animal for avodah zarah. You shech an animal for avodah zarah, obviously it's also shchita she'ena re'uya. So now, according to the Chacham, who say it's nonetheless considered shchita, and therefore would be shaykh to the isser of also v'ez b'no. So Reb Shimon Lakish says, Reb Shimon Lakish, lo shanu elo sheshochat rishin la'avodah zarah v'sheni l'shulchano. So it says Rish Lakish that when the Mishnah says that according to the Chacham, if you shecht an animal for avodah zarah, you would be chayiv for also v'ez b'no. That would only be right. So also v'ez b'no, of course, requires two animals, a mother and a daughter. So if you shecht the first animal, the mother for avodah zarah, and then you shecht the daughter for lunch, so for shechting the daughter for lunch, you'll be chayiv makis for violating ozav has been all the sishka to be omechad. But if the mother was shechted for lunch Ain't nothing wrong with that. But then when you shech the daughter, you'll be in violation of two issues. You shech the daughter for avodah zarah, and also vezbino. Avodah zarah is a chiyuv skila. Also vezbino is a chiyuv makis. Kom le b'derab minei, you'll get the more severe punishment, which is misa. You wouldn't receive makis for also vezbino. Says again, Amr Shlakis says, Shimon ben Lakish, Leshanu, when we say that you would get makis for also vezbino, in the context of shechting for avodah zarah, let's shachad rishon avodah zarah. The mother was shechting for avodah zarah, so you chayiv misa, chayiv skila for shechting the mother for avodah zarah. V'sheni shulchanu, then you shech the daughter for lunch. So you be chayiv makis for shechting the daughter for lunch, also vezbino. Aval rishon the shulchanu, but if the mother was for lunch, v'sheni l'avodah zarah, and then the daughter was shechted for avodah zarah, and you're violating shechting for avodah zarah, but also the fact that you had already shechted the mother, and now you're shechting the daughter. So by shechting the daughter, by shechting the daughter for avodah zarah, you're in violation of both shechita for avodah zarah, which is a chiyuv skila, and also vezbino, which is a chiyuv makis. The komle b'derab minei, we are going to punish you for the greater of the violations, which is skila for avodah zarah. You wouldn't be receiving makis for also vezbino. Amrle Rabbi Yechanan says to Rish Lakish, Zoi, afilu tinoka shabes rabban yodin. This is a concept that even little babies know. I have a nephew. My nephew was born yesterday. My brother and sister, they had a baby born yesterday. Even he knows it. He doesn't even have a name yet. And even he knows that if you shech the first animal, if you sech the mother for lunch, and you sech the daughter for avodah zarah, is coming with the rabbi, and there's not going to be a chiyuv makis. Rather, says Rabbi Yechanan, the bigger chiddush is the following: that it could even be that if you shech the mother for lunch, you could still be chayiv makis for shechting the daughter for avodah zarah. How so? Kegon de asu be mishum osu vezbino v'lo asu bo mishum avodah zarah. For example, if he shechted the daughter for avodah zarah, and they said, "Hey, if you know that if you shech that daughter, you're going to be chayiv makis for osu vezbino." They didn't warn him that you're going to be chayiv skila for avodah zarah. They warned him you're going to be chayiv makis for osu vezbino. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, in that case, you can even be chayiv makis in that case, even though you're shechting for avodah zarah as well, but you were warned for makis. Rav Shimon ben Lakish disagrees because he says kevin dechi asube potter, since that if he would have been warned that he's chayiv skila, he's going to be chayiv skila for avodah zarah, then he would not have been chayiv makis for osu vezbino, kilo asube nami potter. So says Rish Lakish, even if the warning was not for skila, but rather for makis, says Rish Lakish, no. Since if the warning would have been for skila, so then there would be no makis, because kamle b'derab minei, right? He gets the more stringent one. He wouldn't get the makis. So also, when he didn't get warned for skila, he still wouldn't get makis. Okay? So Rabbi Yochanan says that if a person is shechting the daughter for avodah zarah, even though there's a chiyuv skila, which is more stringent, as we know from Masechta Sanhedrin, well, we also know because common sense, capital punishment is more stringent than beating. So says Rabbi Yochanan, even though there is capital punishment for shechting for avodah zarah, even so, if he was warned, however, that he's going to get a beating, so then we'll give him a beating. Whereas Rish Lakish says, since there was the potential for capital punishment, which would override a beating, so even when there was no warning for capital punishment, he's still going to be spared the rod. The Taimayu and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish are consistent with their reasoning. Also, Avdimi, Omar, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babble, he said thus: Chayve misos shogegin, v'chayve malkos shogegin, v'davar acher. that if you have somebody who does something that you chayiv misa for, as well as something else, for example, our case, you shecht the daughter for avodah zarah, so there's a chayiv misa for avodah zarah and the chayiv makis for osav ezbeno, or chayiv malkis shogigin v'davar acher, or something you chayiv makis for, and something that you chayiv mammon for. Rabbi Yochanan almost says, Rabbi Yochanan chayiv that if you didn't warn for the more stringent one, you could still be chayiv for the less stringent one. Rish Lakish Omer Potter. Rish Lakish says Potter. Rabbi Yochanan Omer chayiv dolo asu po. Rabbi Yochanan says, look, if for example a scenario of misa and makis or whatever, for example in our scenario, if they didn't warn you for misa for the avodah zarah, so you can still get makis for those of ezbeno. Rish Lakish Omer Pturin dechem dechi asu be Potter. Rish Lakish says Potter because since if they would have warned for the more stringent one, then the more lenient one would be irrelevant. So kilo asu be, even when they didn't warn for the more stringent one, nami Potter, the less stringent one, the more lenient one, because it remains irrelevant. Utzricha. And we needed both of these cases, and with this we wrap up the daf. We needed both cases. We needed the case in our Mishnah of shechting the daughter for avodah zarah, where if he was warned for osav ezbeno, Rabbi Yochanan says he's chayiv makis, Rish Lakish says he's not. And we also needed the case of chayiv misos and chayiv malkios v'davar acher. We needed that case as well. How come? I'll tell you why. If we only had our case of shechting the daughter for avodah zarah, I could argue that this is where Rish Lakish says that if you warn for osav ezbeno for makis, there's no makis, because both skila for avodah zarah and makis for osav ezbeno are punishments that are taken by the body. Right? Skila is a very physical punishment. Makis is a very physical punishment. It happens to the body in both cases. But in the second scenario of Rav Dimi, when he came from Eretz Yisrael, he said even if you have a scenario, for example, if you eat your friend's treifa, right? Your friend had some meat that was treif, and you ate it. So since you'd be chayiv makis for eating treifa, so you'd be potter for the mammon. You'd be potter for having to pay back your friend. But if you didn't get warned for makis, for eating the treifa, I might think that Rish Lakish would say that since the makis is for your body, but the mammon, paying your friend back, is your wallet, maybe Rish Lakish would say in that case, since one is a bodily punishment and the other is a financial punishment, maybe in that case, fine. I get that if you were warned for makis and we give you makis, so ein malkin, ein loku mishalim, if you're chayiv makis, you're not going to have to pay back your friend, you're already getting makis. But maybe Rish Lakish would say that if you weren't warned for makis, so you're not going to be receiving that bodily punishment, maybe you would have to have a financial penalty. So maybe it gives you the Rabbi Yochanan that you would pay the money. Therefore, we have to say that no, Rish Lakish is consistent in both cases. And if we only had the case of, the makis and the misa and something else, the makis and something else, maybe this is where Rabbi Yochanan says that, for example, if you ate your friend's treifa, right, and so maybe there, if there was no warning for makis, you would have to pay, because again, makis is on the body and the money is financial. But maybe by the shechting the daughter for avodah zarah, maybe it agrees with Rish Lakish that since both punishments are physical to the body, maybe even when you warned for osav ezbeno, you wouldn't get makis. Since if you were warned for capital punishment, you get capital punishment. Even when you don't warn for the capital punishment, instead you warn for makis, for osav ezbeno, you still don't get makis. Therefore, we need both cases to show that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish maintain their respective positions, that Rabbi Yochanan says that you would get the lesser punishment, Rish Lakish says you wouldn't in both scenarios. Friends, that was Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechta Chullin. I think it ended up being a bigger and more complex Daf than I thought that it would be. And that Pei Aleph of Masechta Makis, the first section, we were discussing additional lashes for also Vesbino by Kodashim in the azarah. That if you have a mother and a daughter that are both Kodashim and you're in the azarah and you shech the mother as a korban, great. We said that when you shech the daughter, according to the Chacham, you b'chayiv makis for also Vesbino. The question is, what about also for lo yeratze? So the first answer was enechinami. You would be chayiv makis also for lo yeratze. Just that we're focused on also ve'ezbino. Since you're chayiv for also ve'ezbino for the daughter, so that's what we're focusing on. We're not going to talk about the lo yeratze. Then we saw the shit of Reb Zera that says it's a lab anitak le'esed, that mechusar zman, which is essentially this daughter that you have to wait till tomorrow to offer since you offer the mother. So it's mechusar zman. And mechusar zman is lo yeratze, but it says miyom hashmini yeratze, so it's a lava nitak le'esei. There actually is no chiyuv makis for lo yeratze. There's only going to be a chiyuv makis for osu vesbino. We continued to discuss the shita of Reb Shimon when it comes to osu vesbino. When it comes to kodashim, yesterday we saw the shita of Reb Oshaya that flat out, Reb Shimon says there is no concept of also vesbino when it comes to kodashim. Today we saw the shita of Rav Amnuna, which is a little bit more subtle. He says that so long as you haven't done the Kabbalah Sadam, Allah Sadam, Zrika Sadam, so then there is no also vesbino by kodashim. But if you've done Kabbalah Sadam, Holach Sadam, Zrika Sadam, it's a Shchita Re'uya, in which case there would be also vesbino even by kodashim. And finally, we got up to a new Mishnah, continuing on the theme of the Machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and the Chacham, Rabbi Shimon and the Chacham, about whether Shchita Shenaruya, Shmei Shchita or not, and the implications for also Vesbino. And we saw there a Machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish with regard to when a Hasra is given for a less stringent penalty. For example, if after having shechted the mother, the daughter is shechted for avodah zarah, so there's also vesbino, which is a chiyuv makis, and avodah zarah, which is a chiyuv skila, but you were warned for makis. Rabbi Yochanan says, so you'll get makis, whereas Rish Lakish says you're not going to get makis, since if you were warned for the greater punishment for misa, you would get misa, and the makis would be irrelevant, so it remains irrelevant even when there's no warning for misa. Friends, that was Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechta Chullin. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.